to be here.
Isn't it great? Thank you for saying yes to doing this and you know sharing how things are going for you and lots of folks are locked down. We were just saying that Amy and I both have roommates, which is great, and it's just not so it's easier than I would think than lots of our friends who are on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Roommates and dogs. I feel like dog parks have been like the saving grace of all the lockdowns. Because at a
Yes.
dog park, there's dogs that are ridiculous, and there's people, and it's
Yes.
allowed. And so it's like it's this really lovely kind of, even when like way back at the beginning when the lockdown was like super severe and kind of scary,
Yep.
even then like the dog park was still the same.
Yeah. I go for walks,
Yeah.
and lots of people in the neighborhood go for walks. And it's funny though, sometimes they're almost afraid to say hi. You know, there's a it feels like they're afraid. They're just there's a level of anxiety that some folks have that I don't have or don't feel, and I just want to go out there and love them all and tell them it's going to be okay, and or it is okay, just what it is, and yeah. So you've been writing any music or?
What have I been doing? I mean, I've been doing a little bit of writing music. I actually did a thing with Alice Hong recently and ended up writing a song out of that, which was kind of cool. Most of the stuff I've been doing, I think we've chatted a little bit about the work I'm doing around voice and like communication and stuff. So I've just been working a lot on that. And so a lot of my creative energy has been like I produce a bunch of music so that people actually have stuff to work with. So when I work with people, I give them different things that they can listen to and explore their voice with. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where the creative music stuff has been going. And then
Mhm.
I've been working on a project with Tanis Fishman that we've been working on for like 3 years that's getting near completion. So
Nice. I love tennis.
I know she's the bomb. She's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
You
So
mentioned two ladies that I love, Alice and
I
Tanis.
know. That's a good crew. We got a good crew.
Me too.
Very lucky.
I
Yeah.
should give Tanis a call. The I did an interview with Alice a week or so ago, and
Mhm.
it was fun to hear what she's doing in Europe and hanging out. I think she made the right decision to go over there.
I think she's in where are like the islands, which the
The
Canary Islands,
Canary Islands.
right
Yep.
now with like a crew that's like they're quarantining together or whatever. And it's
Doing creativity and quarantine
yeah,
together.
which
Yeah.
sounds
What
amazing.
what a great idea.
Totally.
You know,
Totally. I mean, especially on these minus 12 days.
we have a heavy snowfall warning.
Yeah.
Is it started snowing over there yet?
No, we're still good over here, but we'll
Uh,
see.
they're supposed to get like a foot
Yeah.
of Calgary snow.
I'd be like, but then I remember I don't leave my house. And I'm like, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really affect me that much.
No. Oh, so
Oh, it's
what have you been doing? How are you?
I'm good. What have I been doing? I mean, like I said, it's been a lot of work and like reorganizing all of that, which has been good. Uh, Outings. So the lockdown. My parents are like in the vulnerable group, so we've been pretty like straight laced around all of that.
Yeah.
So for like Christmas, I because we couldn't hang out, right? Couldn't go
Yeah.
in, they couldn't come out. So I brought all my music gear out and I set it up on the porch outside so they could
Beautiful.
stay inside and then I could play them Christmas songs. So that was really sweet.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah, that was lovely. And then we walk a lot. It's a lot of just working on things and kind of head down,
Yeah.
you
Isn't
know?
it interesting that, you know, because we don't know, how long this is going to go on. We just don't. And even if we think we do, our mind wants to say, well, by June, by May, you know, and but we don't know, and we could be kind of, so and it's hard to plan what's next or where we're going, and
Yeah. It is. It's been for me. I've been doing a lot of studying. Like I've actually gone and started taking a lot more. Like I've applied to school again. I'm taking a university course, like a fourth year psych course, and I started somatic experience training,
Yeah.
which is a 3 year course.
Hmm.
And that has been like, when you find something and you study it, and like for me, like university studying, it's a bit of a slog. Like I'm like, I will make myself read this. I will remember the notes. I can do it, but it's
Yeah.
not that fun.
Yeah.
Somatic experiencing stuff, I almost can't get enough of it. Like I will just watch and read and dive in. The premise is all about holding how we hold trauma in our body
Yes.
and how to start to regulate the system instead of like going deep into the trauma, just like taking a little bit of it and integrating it, and a little bit of it and integrating it. And I wanted to do the training, so I was doing so much. I do so much work on voice and so much work with people and voice and communication. And again, I was finding, this is so trauma related. Like it's just so relevant. And I was working with clients and I was doing this, but I didn't quite have all the tools. I wanted more tools and would see it. And now that I'm in the program learning about like how trauma affects us, but how developmental trauma affects us. And, noticing like for
What's
me,
developmental trauma?
so for example, like let's say in your family situation or something happened where you had somebody who was maybe a bit more authoritarian or something like that, right?
Everybody in my family was more authoritarian. Yes.
And we go from like a certain generation, and we're going to get this as well, right? So when you have regular trauma, like something happens, you'll go into fight or flight, or you go into freeze. And then you kind of like, when you come out of it like an animal, you'd shake it off, you kind of go through and you go back into life if you get that process. But with developmental trauma, there's this extra layer that there's a whole attachment scenario. So let's say there's a parent or a caretaker, and they get mad or they do something, and the kid gets very like, and they get angry. But then this is also the person that they need. Like they need them to survive. So not only do they end up going into freeze because it's too much, like they can't get angry, maybe they're not allowed to speak back, whatever. Not only do go and they freeze, there's also this imprint of fear of, if I speak up, I won't be loved, or I won't get what I need in life because I need this person. So there's not just a trauma that's based in like the kind of like a shock trauma, like when you get hurt, but
Yes.
there's actually a whole developmental thing about your attachment and your ability to attach, and your ability.
Ongoing, ongoing.
Yeah. So it's just I'm just so enthralled with it.
Yes.
And in my own body, recognizing I went through a session and I got to the place of like a past thing where I was angry, and I started to feel the anger and I almost passed out.
Wow.
Like my whole system was like, that's not safe. Like, so just watching that has been really cool, and learning more about that, and then starting to see like when I'm working with people how that is affecting their voice.
So good for you. I just posted a video 2 days ago, Gabor Mate,
Oh yeah.
talking
Mm.
exactly about this, but in relation to addiction. And like exactly, and to be honest, to share with you that I have, been in recovery for many years, and have kind of said no to the whole idea of trauma.
Yeah.
No, what are you talking about? That's
Yeah.
bullshit. Just tough it out. Whatever, no problem.
Get her done.
There's nothing
Totally.
to see here. These are not the droids you're looking for. It's just I looked the other way. I said no. And a few years ago, my older brother said, "Well, actually, David, we grew up in a house of trauma. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and it was, and so it's taken a long time for me personally to start to even acknowledge that it was there, that it is there, that it's still there, and now I'm poking around looking for how to move it, what's next I mean,
Yeah.
mostly I've done the spiritual work. I've been doing it for years, meditation and sweats, and
Yeah.
and I've done some anger work. I've done lots of the stuff the groups that we've been doing for myself for 40 years, but but I think there's another level of moving this trauma, out of the system,
Mhm.
to another level of freedom that I'm really open to looking at. So thank you for bringing it up. I think it's great that, my jaw just about dropped because it's a topic that's really up for me right now.
Oh wow. Well,
And
it is, you just hit so many things on the head. Even just like, it's not a big thing. You just suck it up, get over it. It doesn't affect me. And these are, I mean, something that came up that was interesting in our training. We were talking about how people who tend to be able to kind of access that spiritual state, that feeling, also are often the people who tend to go into freeze states. Like they're able to just dissociate because you tend to do the thing that your nervous system is used to. And so that one hit home for me as well because I've always been like, I can always escape even before I got really into spirituality, although I always kind of was. I could always escape into creativity or into those other things. And then actually seeing like, what other things are underneath that it's a really fascinating work. I'm deep in. I'm deep
uh,
in. I'm in for life.
the other thing is, I've really discovered at a different level, Brené Brown, and Brené's work around shame, and it's like, oh gosh, because there's another thing that I denied,
Yeah.
that there was, I had shame, that I was, I said it, but I didn't understand what it was.
Mhm.
I talked about that I'd grown up with this idea that I wasn't good enough, or that I was a bad boy, that I was not smart enough, and those were all shame statements. But I didn't realize that, I didn't have the language of so isn't she amazing? Uh,
I really like her. I just making sure my hands off. I really like her Braving the Wilderness book. That's probably one of my favorites of hers. But yeah,
mhm.
she's lovely. And shame being like, the sensation of shame, understanding like where it lives and what it is to be with that and not be with it in a like, oh, I need to feel the worst of it, but like, how do we hold that part of us that's like still for and in shame and hold that part of ourselves with so much
It
so
seems
much
that
love.
shame is welded in by trauma.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
trauma is like a welding arc. It just welds into the system, and it takes a lot of love, a lot to melt it, to break it free, or to let it kind of
Mhm.
soften,
You know,
Yeah.
I love that you said thaw. This was something. I mean, I've personally done this for a long time. Is when I journal, I let myself be like mean and angry and twisty. Like I let my like teenage pissed off person speak, and I've had to do that, or not had to, but just learned that if I try and cut off one of my voices, I never get to what's underneath it.
Yes.
And so they were talking about like with thawing. I love that you use that term, like when you're thawing when somebody goes into a freeze state, so they just dissociate, like go numb, whatever, when they're coming out of that state, like anger, rage, like just is actually really healthy because it means they're actually coming out of it. And so that we want to actually take that like intense place and let it be experienced with presence. And then it starts to ground into the things like forgiveness and understanding. But it almost needs to go through this like this shakti pot, this like fiery energy
Yes.
before it can kind of integrate in.
Yeah.
It's
Beautiful.
interesting.
So will you be in a kind of a place where you can help people move through this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now, I already do that with a lot of the work I do with voice. I do it with just with an awareness of what my training is at. Everybody has some aspects of trauma. There are some things that are probably beyond my scope, and I'm aware of that.
Hmm.
Um, but absolutely, because what I find with like the voice is when you get to a place of like no, no, that when a person can feel that in their body,
I could feel it. He just did it. He was like,
Right? That's it's so challenging for us to get to, like, as the little kid who's being bullied, to feel the voice that never got to be said, that like, no, like, go away, that like protection, that like strong voice. I use a bit of that already to kind of come into it, but the reason I'm doing the training is I want to be able to work deeper. Like, I want to fully work with helping people equalize through trauma, because what I'm finding in my own work and with like brilliant like therapists and stuff I've met is, cognitively I'm actually quite clear. I'm really good at inner dialogues. Like, I've spent decades, almost 15 years, working on that, working in therapy, working in somatic, working in plant medicine, working in, the jam, you've done the circle.
yeah,
And I've worked physically, but there's more in this physicality
yeah,
that isn't about going into some state, but about like going in.
yes, yes, yeah,
And and I meet a lot of people who have done excellent cognitive therapy. They can get their mind to work in the way it needs to,
yes,
but it's still held in the body. That energy is still locked. And
yeah,
so unlocking that is like, it's revolutionary. It's
hmm,
it's it's amazing. It's a
hmm,
lot. There's a lot of feelings, that can come out, but it's really powerful, because then that story that, like you said, there's that story of abuse or whatever happens. Instead of just saying that story and not feeling it, you kind of little by little go through the experience of it, integrate it. And then when you speak of that story, it has like a weight of understanding.
hmm.
It's not like you're owned by it. It's not that you're affected by it, but like, there's wisdom in your words and in your approach because you lived it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this may be the same with lots of people. I mean, I grew up in this house, and so when I tell my story in recovery,
Mm.
it usually doesn't start until I'm 13 or 14.
Mm.
And prior to 13 or 14, we were sworn to secrecy around the house. What happened in the house, in our house, stayed in the house. And I don't think I've ever said this, you know, like I'm saying it right now, that it and that instruction,
Yeah.
I think, has been overlaid on the story of David, from 2, to 12, it, prior to 2, I don't know that, I don't know what it was like, but,
Yeah.
um, I do know that I was the fourth in 5, and, and it was a tough show, and yeah, interesting. I think, I'm excited I'm excited, first of all, that we can even have this conversation, and that that I'm personally open, at my age, to just be looking to say, okay, let's poke around here, um, and yeah, there's more uh, to more freedom yet,
Yeah.
because this is what we're talking about is the things that keep us small, or keep us um in our prison.
Totally.
Yeah,
And how beautiful it is that this is even like, yeah, like this dialogue exists. I
yeah,
remember, when I was 21, my sister passed away. So I'm the youngest of five. I'm also a five, crew of five. And my sister passed, and I was in a hard state. And I ended up doing like kind of like spiritual counseling. But I talked to my parents about therapy, like going to a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist. And it was kind of like, I'm sure they might have gone if I fought for it, but it was kind of like, you don't really do that. You don't need that. And now to like go, finding that balance, of course, we don't want to instill victimhood. We don't want to instill using that as a power, because it can be, but that we can have a conversation of, what you're saying. It's not about blaming my childhood. It's not about, yeah, they did it wrong, but it's about like understanding how these imprints actually changed or affected my nervous system. It
yeah,
affected how I'm showing up. And it's not a cognitive thing.
No.
This has nothing to do with choice. This wasn't
Yeah.
like, I'm going to be like this forever. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I love the word somatic means.
it's a body.
Okay.
Connected with your body, basically, to be connected with body. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Somatic means body.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that. Um,
So experiences of your body. Yeah.
yes. And I mean, I think it's common knowledge that we hold, our pain, we hold our anger, we hold our fear in the body, as well as it's not just a psychological thing.
Yeah.
And well, good for you. I think it's great. Now you know, I I'm going to take this little piece for myself and say, okay, so this is, I literally I do a video every morning,
Mhm.
and I've been talking about trauma. I've been talking about shame, because shame is like one of the lowest vibrations in Dr. David Hawkins' vibrational scale. The lowest is shame, and when we're there, it's very painful.
Yeah.
It has a lot of pain, and it's dense, and but there's not much. We don't speak about it a lot because publicly, who the hell wants to talk about shame?
Well, I think it's so prevalent too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I remember back in the day, and this doesn't really happen to me now. But when I was younger, so I went to stress management when I was I started going when I was 9. I was sick. I'd get stomach aches all the time from like
Mhm.
kindergarten to like 12, 13. And then I would lose my voice for like 9 months a year. And just like my body was not processing stress. I wasn't processing stress. And there were reasons and
Yeah,
all of that. But
I'm sure.
yeah, I mean, the anxiety, the feeling of like wanting to crawl and take your skin off, like just like being so uncomfortable in this like really lovely gift that we get. We get a real sweet meat suit for like 100 years, you
Yeah.
know? And how it affects us and how it affects us when we don't even know it's affecting us.
Yes, of course. Well, we didn't have any language. Nobody knew what the hell was going on. What's wrong with her?
Yeah, totally. Like,
What's wrong with me? And so that would also pile up in shame and guilt,
yeah,
I had a good friend actually take his life a couple of weeks ago, and what came up around it for me was the societal shame that we have around suicide,
yeah,
so that we don't even talk about it. You know,
it,
It-
yeah,
you're
yeah. I know the friend you're talking about. I've met him a few times and had
yeah.
conversations. Lovely, lovely human, just like a lovely soul, lovely, kind soul.
Yes. Okay. Yes, you do know him. Yeah.
Yeah,
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 we were all shocked, of course, and because we just didn't, and we I went to a place where I think a lot of people would, which was what could I have done, and which is a bit self-centered on my part, but still, we feel like, is there anything I missed, or and but the big piece that I talked about publicly is that the tendency for us to you know, even deny, to say, so and so died suddenly.
yeah.
We don't like to use the word, and I think that if we expose it, it becomes it loses its stigma, and we can talk about it.
I mean, I agree. I know some of the concerns with it are things like especially in younger groups, like in like 14, 15, is that when somebody commits suicide, others in the group are more likely to. Like there's a real statistical increase that they will. But at the same time, like I was having a conversation with somebody and I don't know your history, but I'll talk to mine. When I get really dark and when I've gotten very dark and twisty, just my nature, I will have intrusive suicidal thoughts. That has happened to me many times in my life.
Yeah.
They'll just come again and again in my head. I'm not trying to think about them, but they'll
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And, I'll have these really dark places. Now, I'm at a place where this doesn't really happen often. And when it does, I don't think of it as, oh, I need to kill myself or anything like that. I'm like, oh, I'm really out of alignment somewhere. Like I need help. And I know what that is. But I've talked to people where this is true for me, and it's been true for people I've chatted with, is the way that I'm built, this disposition that can be so extreme and so kind of intense or whatever,
Yes.
for me to say that to somebody, and I actually did this in my coach training. I talked about, oh, I'm having these things because I was curious to see how people would deal with me. And you could see them because they didn't know that, oh, she's suicidal. We need to do something. But that wasn't it. Like I'm like, have it. Like, this is actually me having a dialogue about it.
Yeah.
The fact that your reaction is so intensely like, we need to fix you. You need to get help. You need to do these things.
Yeah.
So far removed from the actual experience that I'm having.
Yeah.
It really brings to light that, I know people that they have these intrusive thoughts or these things happen, and they're like, well, I can't talk to this person or this person or this person because that person is going to make a big deal, or like they're going to make it different than what it is.
Yeah.
And
And
it is
that's,
a
yeah.
deal. It's important.
Yeah.
But I think what happens because we don't have these conversations, because it's so deeply uncomfortable, I think, for people as well,
Yeah.
hear it, is that, you have out of, 10, 15 people, this person who's having intrusive thoughts or these really dark places, maybe one of them they can talk to and actually feel safe.
Well, I'm one of them.
I know.
I'm that one.
I hear you.
And I'd like to help more people get to be that one.
I agree.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Is
Yeah.
how do we just do that for each other?
Well, this conversation even is the beginning,
I
of destigmatizing the whole thing. It's like, I mean, that's what it is. It's a stigma. It's like, oh my God, you probably don't remember this, but at one time, it might have been in the 60s, there was a huge stigma around cancer.
Oh yeah. Sorry, one second. I just gotta let my dog out. She's
And,
demanding. There we go. There we go.
you didn't even say the word,
Yeah.
you know, somebody was sick with, we used to say C, they had C.
It's
I know. But so you can see how far we've moved, where it went from, it was a death sentence to it's not. And the same with AIDS and the same with lots of things. But I like to have that happen with suicide, that, it's not, it's, in a 12-step world, if I'm in a room with 100 people and I ask how many people have had suicidal thoughts, 100%.
oh yeah.
100%. And they'll raise their hand. Generally, nobody hides that shit. They're like, yeah, how many of you have had a gun in your mouth? Well, or been on a chair with a rope around your neck, then there's some of those, I mean, and how many have taken, so there's lots of, it's way more common there that we discuss it. But I think the rest of the world, many of us are in a spot of just not knowing what to say, it's so, and even people who've had those thoughts have hidden them so deeply that they don't want to talk about them, and they're afraid to talk. But just like you said, they don't want to be shamed. They don't want to be, uh, cut out of the pack.
Totally. Or they don't want to make it all about them.
Yeah.
Right. It's this funny thing. I chat with so many people, and there's this often really constricting desire in us that we so desperately want to be seen, but are
Yeah.
so fucking terrified of being seen
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
this may all be related to where we started with trauma,
yeah,
you know,
trauma.
um, and hiding. I mean, we hid that, didn't we? Whatever the trauma, that little video of Gabor's that's connected to addiction, I'll send it to you. It's very short. It's beautiful. It's animated. It's like a sweet little animated trauma video and addiction. And he's amazing. And but it is hidden, we're our trauma seems to come with shame.
Yeah.
And trauma and shame and addiction are like the trifecta.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyways, and we went a little deep, didn't we?
Can I offer something that I do? I've done this with like my nieces and nephews,
Yes.
but it was something that I did back in the day that was really helpful for me. when I would do these things, because I know in my world, one of my challenges was I'd have these deep feelings or these deep thoughts, and I would say them to somebody that I wanted to validate me, who
Hmm.
might not have ever had the capacity to do so.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I use this with clients, but like to draw circles of like the most intimate things that are like your secrets, your things. You put a circle around it. And then inside the circle, you write the people that you know, if you had to, they would be there, they would be kind, they would do their best to support you, they would be loving.
Hmm.
And then outside the circle, you write the people that you might want to talk to, but who probably aren't the right people. Just as like a reference of like, I'm having this. Okay, I want to talk to that person, but they actually can't understand me, but this person can. I might go talk to them. I
Yeah.
might reach out. And that, I know that helped me so much when I was going through like a really bad breakup. I reached out to friends I hadn't talked to in years just because at that time I was talking about it a lot. I didn't want to exhaust my friend group. But
Yeah.
I went and I reached out to people I hadn't talked to as much, but I knew would be okay with me reaching out to them. And it was just a really also nice way of realizing like there's more people out there than I thought.
Yes. Well, and that is true. I mean, we basically innately want to help,
Yeah.
and and we're all becoming better listeners. I hope we're all becoming better listeners, and
Everything in my heart, I hope that.
isn't it funny that listening is so healing? Being heard is yeah, nothing to fix.
Yeah.
Just listen,
Yeah.
and and that's the deal. That's love. Love is listening.
Totally. I agree completely.
Uh,
I love that. Like, do you need to be fixed or listened to? Before I sit here, which one do you want? It's like just listen to. Okay, no problem.
yeah, on my men's group, I've been in men's group for many, many years, and we meet still outdoors by the fire on Thursday nights and for 3 hours, and that we've become good listeners.
Yeah,
We really have. We've, you know, and but we do say, "Are you would you like some feedback?" We always have, we have a structure, so we say, would you like some feedback, or you just wanted to spew or dump or
mhm.
and but listening is the deal. It really is the magic,
It is.
and you know, and people often. It's funny that say there's 10 men around the fire, and everybody gets 10 minutes or so of check-in time, and in somebody else's story, of course, I see me, and as they move through, or if I have, even if I don't speak it, if I feel like I have the answer for them, then it's like, oh, I have the answer for me. It's like, it's a beautiful that we all have very similar things we're going through in life,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm
Well,
very blessed to have that men's group for all these years.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love like just realizing like when it comes down to it, like no matter how different you look at an issue, you know, like the most extreme, versions of that, when you go down deeper, it's always human need,
Hmm.
a need for security. One person can say, I think guns, we need guns. And to them, it's a need for security and safety. And the person who's saying, guns are terrible, we shouldn't have guns, also a need for security and safety.
Yes.
When it comes down to the needs, we're all just human. Like
Hmm.
they don't really change that much.
No.
To be seen, to be heard, to be safe, to
I
belong.
think there's at least three songs in this talk that we've done so far.
Totally.
You could, there's material here. I wish I could write songs. But you're the writer. I, I'm wondering, it would be nice to chat a little bit after, but did you think I asked you if you might sing something for
Yeah,
us before
I'm
we?
always happy to sing.
I know, isn't it great? I love that you love to sing.
I'm like, yeah, it's kind of my jam. It's kind of one of
Well,
the
and it's healing.
It is. I'm just looking. I just wrote this song. I thought it would be fun to play something. I literally just fell out of my face. So, I mean, you know, Alice, we did a women's circle with her, and she was leading she led a really sweet practice on like embodying. And um, the work that I do, you know a lot about it, but one of the areas, so I kind of have different coaching programs, and one is embodied voice, which is using your body to map your voice through your system. So you map to intention, and you felt like that felt sense. You know, when I said no and you felt it, because I went into my gut to do it, that
Mm-hmm.
felt sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, we did this. Sorry about the bang. We did this really lovely practice, and then after the practice, she gave us about 5 minutes, I think, and she was like, "Just journal," you know. And instead of journaling, I somehow I can't say I wrote a song. The energy of the group wrote a song, and I got to be the messenger of the song. But it's called this. It's called "This Body Is My Temple."
I love it already.
It's it's definitely your jam, I think. There you go. Can you hear the guitar?
Yep.
It'll be kind of quiet, I know. But I might turn on original sound. One sec. Here we go. This body is my temple. This body is my home. This body is my temple. And I am strong. I am strong. This body is my temple. This body is my home. This body is my temple. And I am strong. From the stars in the sky to the sea at my feet, from the mountains I've climbed to the air I breathe, from fires that burn deep down in my soul to the ashes where I grow, to the ashes. This body is my temple. This body is my home. This body is my temple. And I am strong. This body is my temple. This body is my home. This body is my temple, and I am strong. Well, I'll dance with the wind, I'll bend like the trees, sing with the birds and fall to my knees, in laughter and joy, in pain and in grief. I'll remember I'm alive. I'll remember that this body is my temple. This body is my home. This body is my temple, and I am strong. This body is my temple, till the day that I go. This body is my temple, and I am home. I am home.
That was beautiful.
Thanks.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, always.
Mhm.
I appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
The effort, the consistency. I also understand all the weird things you have to navigate behind the scenes that people don't realize exist. You know, it's it's hard.
Um, yeah, I feel grateful. Um, this year I spent a lot of time with Muji,
Mm,
and sometimes, I would say an hour to 2 hours, 3 hours a day even, and I just feel lifted by his energy and his teaching, and he doesn't have a path. He just says, to drop in, to let go. And so anyway, he's been very helpful, and the work with the 12-step world. I do lots of sponsorship work, and that lifts me up.
yeah.
I feel very blessed. Probably, one of my best years in my life, I think. So
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, thank you. And you're right, it's challenging too. It,
Yeah, it's fun.
it,
I
um,
I mean, I hope for people, and I know for me, yeah, I wanted to be doing. I'm very lucky. I'm very privileged. I have a home, all these things, and I get that. But it also made me realize, where I want to be, and I've seen so many people close to me and around me that have, they've had to face some effing demons, like things that have never slowed down enough to see them,
yes.
and just that in the midst of it, it feels like you're breaking, but that sometimes, you know, if I may, an analogy, just they talk about Kali, and Kali not so much being just the destroyer, but that when shit falls apart and it's not what you expect and everything goes totally different, it's then that we actually get access to see the things we never could have seen before.
Mhm.
And though we are scattered all over the universe in pieces and fragments, as we start to pull them back together with awareness, it's like that love and the kindness and the willingness to be with ourselves, like it builds us into a new foundation, or a refined foundation, more whole and with greater possibility. And I pray deeply that, that everybody, that they are bathed in blessings,
Mhm.
that the energy that is fragmented or feels broken, that it can be held in a love that is bigger than any one person, and that they're held in that.
Yes. That's hold the vision that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah,
That is the vision that, we're in a period of forced retreat. And it's beautiful. So thank you for, holding the vision, holding the light, for being, who you are, and available for folks. And I wish you all the best this year. I know it's going to be amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing now. So thanks for coming and sharing.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work
You-
that you do. I appreciate it. I always see your Monday night things, but I do my Facebook Live at the same time, and so I'm like,
I know.
ah.
I know, but Mondays are good. We have I used to do it. I used to broadcast, and I don't now.
Yeah,
So Mondays are, everybody's welcome on the Zoom call, but we're just there. And felt, people didn't really like to be in a meditation group that was public,
yeah.
and,
That's
and
totally fair.
so I stopped doing that. But I do love, we have sometimes 10 or 12 people that show up, and it's very nice and very intimate, and
Beautiful.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
So thank you. And I'm going to take this, and and on YouTube, and I'll send you the link tomorrow.
Sounds
Because I'll write a little content and in it, and then I can send if you want to post it. I'd love
Yeah,
that.
I'd love to, and I can throw it up on my blog as well.
Yeah. So
I put
I'll
those
have
up
it.
every week or several
It's
a week.
it's live on YouTube right now, but I'll download it and then upload it and kind of clean it up a little. So
Yeah,
love you
love
and
you.
thank you.
Thank you for your time. It was a
Yes.
pleasure. Always.
Talk soon.